Modern life has squeezed out the silent moments between actions. When you go to the fridge to fill your water, you scroll to pass the time. When you're waiting for your food to come, you resist boredom through browsing. And I think this could be a huge reason why so many of us feel like life is meaningless. It has no meaning. There's no deeper purpose to what we're experiencing. And it might be why you don't feel inspired to go after what you really want in this life. I want you to do me a favor right now. Go ahead and look down at your hands. Really stare at them for a second. Take a moment to observe what they're made of, what they're comprised of. You'll see the fingerprints etched into each finger. You will see the markings on your palm and how complex and elaborate they are. These are the kinds of things we don't really take the time to ponder and stare at intently anymore because we have this device. This device allows us to no longer observe our reality around us and ask ourselves, what is it exactly we're experiencing right now? Let's go back to our hands. I want you to touch something. That sounded wrong. I want you to touch a surface. Touch something outside of your physical body and start describing what that sensation is like in words. Try to put that to words. Now, for me right now, I'm touching one of the arms on my chair, and it's got a bit of bounce to it because it's made of some sort of rubbery material. And so I would describe the feeling as smooth, soft, with a little bit of give. Now, why is that thing smooth, soft, with a little bit of give? Why would we describe it as such? It is only smooth in relation to our skin. Now, let me tell you what I mean by this. What I mean is that this chair's arm doesn't have the inherent property of being a little bouncy. It's only bouncy when our skin makes contact to it and we feel it. So, softness, bounciness, rubberiness, it can only arise when it's in relation to something else. It's in relation to our skin. That's how we label things in our world. We label them in relation to the human body. And I'm not the first person to tout these ideas. Alan Watts, he really likes talking about how our physical body is in relation to everything in the universe. And I was watching something today with a quantum physicist. I think he's a quantum physicist. Been doing research for my book. And he talked about how so much of what we think about things in terms of scale and size and texture is in relation to our body. You know, a foot, a meter, these types of scale representations we created were based on the physical body. A foot is literally it's pretty close to what an average foot size is like. A meter was like the length of your arm or something like that. And we say something is small because it is smaller than the average size of a human being. And we say something is big because it is bigger than the average size of a human being. That's usually how we think of things in our environment in relation to our body. So things cannot be big without relating them to an average constant. And the constant in most cases in which we measure things is the human body. And when you really deeply start to think of things like that, the fact that so much of our outside world depends on us relating it back to the human experience, everything we see, and separate into these different objects and put names to and label, when you realize that we, in a sense, are creating our realities in that way because we have the brain capacity to be conscious of these things and to put a name to the things we're seeing and not just act on our biological mechanisms all the time, like most animals, although some animals do possess some level of self-consciousness, then you start to look at the world differently. You're like, holy shit, in a way, I'm creating a lot of the things that I see in my reality right now because these things only exist and sprout to life when a human being is there to consciously observe them in a sense. I'll give you another example. Right now, I'm looking at a plant outside of the frame here, and the plant is green. What is green? Like, how do you describe green to another person? You can't. You can't describe green other than it feels earthly. You have to use another sort of word, another sort of adjective to describe a color. We can never objectively describe colors because we all are saying that this is green based on our own subjective experiences. And we all agree that the thing is green because in our minds, green looks the same in our reality to all of us. But to know what the pigment of it actually looks like, besides if we were to like observe where it is on the spectrum of light, that's like the objective version of color, is where it is in the spectrum of light. Besides that, our greens could look completely different. So my green could be completely different from your green. And therefore, although it seems like the things outside of us are not us in a sense, or we're not creating it, a lot of this stuff we're seeing has subjective layers to it. And it only appears the way it does due to the way your organism is built up, the way your organism functions. I like to think of it as like, this is like the Gen Z way of putting this into a better example. It's like if we had one extra part of our brain activated, let's say, or we added on another part to our brain, which allowed us to see spiritual entities, let's say. This is going to get like real into conspiracy theory bullshit, but let's not think of it that way. Let's think of it in scientific properties. If we added an extra part to our brain, which allowed us to see, like, let's say, some sort of spiritual being, then technically that spiritual being, it still exists out here in reality. We just don't possess the brain capacity to see it, but it is there. It is technically there. We just don't have access to that part of whatever we're experiencing right now in reality because we don't possess the piece of the brain that we need in order to see that thing. So that could be the very type of thought experiment you need to stop gooning. Why? Because, well, as far as you know, while you're getting into the dirty work, there could be some sort of alien that you cannot consciously perceive sitting there watching you do it. Do you like the idea of that? It very well could be the case. Apart from abstract thoughts, just kind of juggling existential stuff like this, let's get back to the main point, which is like sitting in silence. These are the type of things that come from spending periods of time really contemplating and looking at things and deeply thinking about the things you see in between actions. We used to have access to this time in such greater capacity, not only because the world was moving slower, but also because of the devices which are so easy to turn to when boredom kicks in. And our brain naturally likes to be stimulated a little bit. And if you are addicted to your phone, well, you're going to naturally turn to that the most because it's the easiest thing to get the cheapest, quickest hit of happy chemicals in your brain. But when you make the conscious decision of, I'm just going to sit here and observe and meditate on reality in between what I just did and what I have to do next or what I'm waiting to do, that's when you start to come to thoughts like this and really appreciate the significance of your existence. Because we are, as far as we know, the only beings capable of observing the universe and knowing what we are doing, and then using the power in which we have as human beings to manipulate the different objects in our observable universe to get what we want. Most mammals with brains similar to ours, they're much more limited in what they can achieve. They haven't created this very, very complex society. Like, they have societies, but they have not created and built out the world at the scale in which humans have. And as far as we know, no other sentient beings are capable of doing that in the universe. And so there's the one side of it, which is we're totally insignificant. We are a small speck of dust within another speck of dust, which is the Earth, within another slightly bigger speck of dust, which is the Milky Way galaxy among, billions of galaxies? Something like that. And so if you think of it that way, then yeah, you're going to think you're insignificant. But if you think to yourself, which is the thoughts that personally arise for me when I'm sitting observing reality in silence without distracting myself, thinking, wow, the fact that I'm even experiencing any of this at all, the fact that my body is capable of producing our five senses to have this sort of experience we call reality is absurd. It's absurd. And you don't need drugs to achieve this. In fact, sobriety to me is the most psychedelic experience of them all. I've been sober for a long time. Like, I've only taken sips of alcohol here and there. Last time I smoked bud was a few years ago, a couple years ago or something. You don't need that kind of stuff or even psychedelics to arrive at those thoughts. You just need to spend more time sitting and allowing yourself to just be and seeing where your thoughts take you, why your thoughts naturally gravitate towards some things other than others. That's when you really get to start to know yourself. You get to start to notice the patterns within your habits. And that's how you develop the ability to regulate yourself as well and control more of your reality. We feel out of control of our reality because all we do is spend time occupying our reality with busy work. But if you took the time to actually sit and think about these things that I'm kind of describing to you and start to develop that perspective, because we all possess the ability to change our perspective on the things we are seeing to a certain extent, then I think life becomes so much more enjoyable on a daily basis, and you also become more inspired to do great things with your life. Other people might adopt this mindset and just want to sit and observe the world all day, but I don't think most people are gonna go straight to that, just naturally default to that. To me, it's so much more inspiring to actually use the power outside of the space between activities, the silence that is necessary for everybody to sit in, to manipulate objects in my reality. And by that, I don't mean manipulate negatively. I mean tinker with things. I mean write out a book like I'm doing, like making videos. Have some awe and wonder at all of those things. It's like, how were we able to even create the thing that I'm talking into right now? It's like a crazy concept that humans can evolve that much. And you have that power as well to create something cool that will benefit humanity and hopefully make more people enjoy their experience of life. I think that's what really makes life fulfilling day in and day out. And sharing those discoveries with other people who enjoy similar topics and interests as you. And all this stuff comes a lot easier, personally, I think, when you stop squeezing out the silent moments between actions and simply sit in silence, stare at things, observe why things move and sound and smell and feel the way that they do, and how that relates to your human body, and marvel at all that. Try to figure it out for yourself if you want to, if that tickles your brain, or simply just admire it and say, this is pretty freaking cool. I'm sure I'll have better ways to describe everything I just yapped about incoherently in this video in my novel, Yes, I am writing a novel. I just mentioned it a couple times in this video. I'm writing a novel about a 21-year-old who goes through this really tragic loss and develops the ability to see into a parallel reality. And we're going to get into quantum physics in that book, existentialism, stuff about reality, kind of like I talked about in this video. If that sounds interesting to you and you like those sort of topics, I think you'll like the novel. I'm giving updates in my newsletter every single week on the novel's progression. So if you want to join me in the journey of creating that novel, you should subscribe to my newsletter. The link is in the description. And if you enjoy talking about subjects like this and you want to meet with a group of people in a video call every weekend where we discuss things related to self-improvement and philosophy and psychology, then you can join my self-mastery school, which is also linked in the description. Love to hear your thoughts about this type of stuff. I think it's so interesting to talk about in the comments. And yeah, that's it.